Hi, I'm Matt from HockeyReviews.ca, and today we are looking at the Warrior Covert QR5 Pro gloves. So this is a snapshot review. I'm borrowing it from a store, so I can't do all the tests on it and to wear it in game, but we'll talk about what this is compared to the old one. I don't have a QRE10 because it was absolutely hot garbage. I suggest you watch the video up there to see why it was hot garbage, but I do know about that glove and what was bad about it. So we'll look at these to see if they improved on it at all. We'll also be doing the fit test on this later on, so you get an idea how these truly fit compared to other gloves. And like I said, because I don't have the QRE10 and I don't have previous Warrior Covert gloves anymore that have the flex cuff, we brought some of my other gloves around that do have flex cuffs, so we'll kind of cover that as well, because these still have that Axyflex cuff, as you can see there. Well, sort of, but we'll talk about that later. Before we begin all of that, if you want to support the channel and you're buying hockey equipment anyways, check out the link in the description to Hockey Supremacy. Clicking that link, making a purchase gives me a kickback, helps support the channel so I can make more content and doing videos like this. Otherwise, check out Patreon and buy me a coffee. Everything through there always comes back in the channel so I can make more content and doing more reviews. Now, to explain what the QR5 Pro is, Warrior changed their naming convention to copy Bauer back in the day and now CCM and all the other companies. The Pro is now the top model, where before this was actually QR Edge Pro. Now these are Pro stock, so it's the gloves that looks a little bit different, but the QR E Pro was always one step down. The QRL Pro was one step down. So for example, the QRE or Edge, which was the top model of this one, had 3-piece finger, index and middle finger, where the Pro only had 2. So the QR5 Pro is now the top, and you can see that 3-piece index and middle finger right there to show that off. And it has the weird rubbery / fake leather material and all the different type of materials on here, whereas the Pro one has a more standard nylon on there instead of kind of the funky stuff like this. So that is the other difference, and the wraparound. So this is a super confusing name and everything, but Warrior kind of copied those other brands, and their Pro line is actually the top now and not just the step below. Now, also talking about this naming convention, which is weird. The QR5 used to be, well, it was the QRL5, I think, or QRE5 was the low of the low. So now Warrior comes out with QR5 Pro. So the naming convention is weird. How did it go from QR10 to QR5? Because they use QR20 for the step below the 10, so you can't do that. So this, I think they gotta ditch whatever this is. It's super confusing, the naming. It's hard to follow which one you're at. Maybe they just want to ignore the 10 altogether, and the next will be a QR6, which isn't a terrible idea. But the naming convention is too odd and too weird and too hard to follow, and they should ditch this. QR1, great idea. Why wasn't the next one just a QR2 instead of QRL? So yeah, hopefully something changes there, because this is super confusing. And when you look it up online, it's also super confusing, because you sometimes find if you search QR5, you get old stuff that you don't want. So it's really weird. So as a quick thing, because I don't have the QRE10s anymore, and remember, check out that video, because I think it's a very good video in showing why companies don't always improve on gear and sometimes make really bad ones. The gist of it is there's one big piece of foam block in the middle here that went all the way down, and that doesn't work with your hand. Your hand doesn't close, it can't close like that if there's one piece there. That's why even a 4-roll has brakes, so when you close your hand, it flexes. But if you have one solid piece all the way straight down, you close your hand, that can never flex. They said they did that design for protection and everything, but they also said they went to a 3-piece design here for protection instead of the multi-piece design, which the QRL had. This was good enough. And if you really want to do the protection, you just add a shop locker and you can float it on top so it doesn't really get in the way. A ton of companies do that now, and it's fine. It was honestly a really poor design, the QRE10, and terrible. And that's why only 2 NHLers I think I've ever seen have them. And then a bunch switched out, or at least one of them did, switched out halfway through the year and went away from it, because honestly, it's a crap glove. This is kind of moving forward. There's still that one massive piece right here. And I have a feeling the next one, the next glove line, will probably be this will be split. So these two might have a piece down here, or this will be split here. So then it becomes 2 pieces, something like that, where I can see that being one and then this one being one. So it'd be 2 pieces here. That way it moves. This does move okay with your hand. You can see it still breaks. Everything kind of moves fine. And the way that this angle is, it moves fine. It will never break that way though. But your hand doesn't totally break that way anyways. Even if you go like this, you can see how it's flat when the other ones are like going in. So when you really break this glove in, that's always going to be flat where the other parts are actually moving with you. But as an actual like feel, it's not as bad because it does allow your fingers and everything to still break. And it's not like a giant piece right in the middle of the glove. So it's definitely an improvement in that sense, but it's still not great. And we'll just go over some of the features on this quickly. This is basically really similar to what Warrior's been doing for their Covert line forever now. You have like the different materials on here for the top end. So it's like that fake, it's like almost plasticky, but it's like that fake Gen Pro leather stuff here. You have the other nylon, and then you have the other nylon. You can see these two nylons are used on the actual Pro Stock gloves. So that's a nice material. I don't like this stuff because it kind of rubs off and stuff. Like the colors kind of get screwed up on it and everything. And it kind of just looks cheap, but they do it for their top end, which is interesting. It definitely gives like a color look of it. As you can see, it's like, oh, it's like leatherish. Considering someone who has Pro Stock stuff and everything, I don't understand why they go this route because it isn't really needed. But anyways, you have your flex thumb. Like always, it's an okay flex thumb. It's nothing crazy. It works. And it's fine. It doesn't really flex the other way too, so it's decent overall. You have, like I said, 3-piece index and middle fingers, and I do like how they do have the big piece right here to kind of get in the way for gaps, which Warrior had problems with gaps in the past, but it's pretty solved at the time. Still have that cuff that I really actually like this design, where this piece right here allows the top cuff to float over gloves, which is really nice because there are some gloves, like for example this one, where if the cuff is built into it, you can see it doesn't really allow it to flex that way. It kind of just gets in the way of the material, and it would be better if this was ramped up, and this kind of helps with that design. You can see how the foam always kind of ramps there, and it really allows the cuff to just kind of go over. So it really does help with kind of wrist mobility in that way. And I like that. It's a great design, and Warrior's kind of the only company that does this piece right here. Other companies like Bauer and CCM do have the cuff that kind of floats over because of the sloped foams, but this one works better than like any other design. So it's really nice there. You have the flex cuff still, which isn't really a flex cuff, but we'll talk about that in a second. And we have their Clarino hair. I can't remember what the hair stands for. It was on the previous ones as well. And they do have kind of the whole wrap over here where normal gloves usually just have a piece of nylon like that, as you can see. And the really disappointing part to me is the outer index or outer finger protection right here, which is super small and tiny. Whereas on the latest Alpha gloves and even the 4-roll Pros, I think, had actually like a piece of here right here, and it doesn't really get in the way of movement. This one isn't a good example, but there are gloves out there which have big pieces here that don't get in the way of movement. And I brought that up to Warrior a long time ago. They finally fixed it for the Alpha and then just ignore it on the Covert. So I kind of sucked because that's not enough padding for your pinkies and stuff. It should be something thick like this. So disappointing in that design there. Gusset material is spandex, as you can see right there, which is pretty traditional for Warrior gloves. It's flexible, as you can see. So nothing crazy or anything going on there. Not like a Pro Stock offering, for example, like this, where it's just Nash that's on the palm with holes cut in for breathability, or a mix of Nash and spandex, so you have some flexibility. Just standard Warrior stuff all the way through, and that's kind of the idea. They changed the liner. Before it was this like blue stuff all the way through, and it was always treated with Polygene, and they had something else on there, Silver Shield, I think. It's gone. It's not in there anymore. It's just a black liner. I'm sure this is all sprayed with Polygene and everything, but it's kind of disappointing to see that the Warrior like famous liner like this and the blue stuff, which this one was Pro Stock and didn't have, is gone now totally, and it's just a black liner. So kind of a shame to see that go that way as well. And that's kind of like the way Warrior has been going down the path. So kind of disappointing, but I guess at this point it is to be expected. As you can see, the like break and everything is pretty good. It's pretty, like, it feels decent in your hands. This isn't great, but it's okay. This isn't the easiest thing to do. Like, I can feel some restrictions compared to, say, this glove, which feels way better to do, and you can really see that piece kind of moving out of the way and everything. But this glove is more broken in, so a bit of an unfair comparison, but just not like the most amazing design out of the box of what this is. Foam package though is pretty good. It's their Impax, as you can see here. So, well, hopefully right there. They've been using this for a bit now, and it's honestly a pretty big improvement over what they had in the past. I was very critical of Warrior QRL gloves and Warrior QX gloves, and when I got those for free to do reviews of, so huge thanks back then to Warrior. And then they stopped sending me stuff. And one of the big things I complained about on those gloves was the foam just wasn't protective enough. And the other thing was the gaps in the fingers. So they really fixed that. While there is still like, there's always going to be a gap, it's not nearly as big. And with how all the other pieces are, chance of that getting in there is not really going to happen. Whereas on those old QRL gloves and the QX gloves, the gaps were too big and you could really jam. You could touch your own, you could feel your bones sticking through there and your finger through there. Sticks could come in there really easy and pucks could fit through there easy. This is much better than what it was before. This could be tightened a little bit, but it's not that bad. You can see this one a bit tighter, but the problem with that is you can see it doesn't straighten out. So fit and finish on this is questionable because this one is too tight, so it doesn't actually straighten out. And just to prove it, I'll put my finger in there, and that's me trying to straighten out my finger as much as possible. And you can see it doesn't just work, right? Just because those pieces aren't on there that well. And it does do it on the other glove as well too. So you can see right there, I can't straighten this out because of basically just where this is. This one is better than what this one is, but it's still not like the best. It could be better. So kind of disappointing there from a fit and finish standpoint, where this glove has slight different issues where it's like kind of tilted, but it's much better feeling and everything. But with that said, this glove, you could definitely see like the gaps on there are considerably more, and I can really touch my fingers. And this was a pro stock glove, and it's easier to get a stick and stuff through there than what is on the new one. So the new ones are greatly improved for that. Now the Impax Foam is also a huge upgrade. Once Warrior went to their butter soft feel stuff, and I don't know if they advertise that here anymore, but basically they went for pure comfort over everything else. The foams were they weren't dense enough. They were too light and everything. That is totally changed now. These foam package and like how this is set up for protection is actually really good. You have a softer density foam here, a very, very dense foam here, and then the plastic insert all throughout. And that's on all of this up here. So it's really well done on basically everything here, and the protection is pretty good. And even like over here, this is a dense foam compared to some other companies, so that's good. Out here it's disappointing, but everywhere else is pretty good. And I tested this with my mini stick test of slashing, and it did well. I did as expected. Warrior gloves since the QR Edge and the DX have been good for that, so got to give them credit for that. Also with the backhand, the way that this is now, you kind of do get some overlap here because of this is kind of changed a bit. So protection on the cuff was pretty good. I still would like to see like a plastic insert in here to add a little bit more protection, but it was better than what I was expecting because there is some overlap there and there's no real straight up gap. Whereas stuff like this does create a straight up gap. So nice improvements in that sense from here. Now for palm feel and everything, it's soft. It feels pretty nice to touch. It just feels like a Nash, but it feels like a nice soft Nash. And we're gonna use our trusty Bauer stick here with the nice textured grip to get a feeling of it. And the palm's like thicker than what I've been using recently, which is like Pro Stock, where it's a single layer. So you really don't feel the textured grip, especially in the palm where there's an overlay. You feel it a bit in the fingers, but as you can see, the fingers keep rolling over when I'm moving it, so that's not the greatest. But it is a little thicker than I would probably prefer, but I get it as a retail glove because you have to have some durability there. But it's a comfortable palm and it feels fine overall. Warrior palms are kind of interesting because, like I said, this is soft and feels okay, and it feels okay for a Nash. It feels better than this, which is their Pro Stock one, which is way thinner, but because of that thinness, I can definitely feel it better on like all the textured on it, so I get that. But this does kind of feel like a cardboard almost like thing. It's not a very great material. Same with these are also the Pro Stock, like kind of famous. This one feels softer than what this one does, but it also like, doesn't feel crazy good or anything like that. It's fine. It's good enough. It's not AX suede soft. It's okay and will be totally fine. Personally, I love the leather stuff, like the digital stuff here, but I get why people wouldn't want to use that, and it wears way too fast, but I can definitely feel the grip better there. Not on the double layer. Double layer, you can't really feel that grip. On the fingers, you definitely can. But palm is fine. It's okay. It is what it is. This seems like a gimmick to me, this whole rolling part, because like no other glove uses it, and I don't really know when that's ever a thing. It's okay for durability though, because I mean, the nylon won't get there, but I've never worn a glove out on that spot. So if you want to support the channel so I keep doing more videos like this and doing full videos reviews where I have to actually buy the equipment like the sticks. If you're in the US, please check out the links in the description to Pure Hockey. Clicking that link, making a purchase gives me a kickback, helps support the channel, and that way I can keep making more content like this and do more real reviews. Now on to the actual size. So this glove fits true size. This is a 14 and you can see my fingers going past it. So totally a true size thing. It is snug on it. Again, 14, so I would have to go to a 15 to get my real size, and then this will probably open up a little bit more to be less snug, but it is fairly snug fitting glove. I still think the jet speeds are going to be a bit tighter, same with that ultrasonic. And to show the proof on this, we're putting our 3D hand in here, which we use for all gloves, and you can see fingertips coming out there, just sitting in there normally. And when we go to the 14, on the other hand, we're going to see it fit more properly and correctly. As you can see, fingertips not going past at all. They're kind of sitting right there. So a little bit of room on the 14, but that's kind of how it should fit. Whereas on the 15, fingertips are blasting past. As you can see, and the spandex does a good job of stretching for that, but that is kind of just how it fits. So very true to size in terms of compared to Bauer and CCM retail, and kind of the same as Warriors have been in the past, minus their 4 rolls. I always found their 4 rolls sometimes fit a little bit bigger, especially the Alpha series on 15s felt really big, where the 14s felt a little small. So it was kind of weird. One reason I want to do this video, and the thing that's really odd to me about these gloves, is I don't understand what they're doing with this flex cuff. Warrior was basically the first company to reintroduce a flex cuff into like really the retail space. Yes, these always existed, but let's be real, Eagles aren't really retail glove. Like, this is custom obviously, but they don't really sell a ton off the shelf. It's more of a custom thing like this. Warrior was the first one with the QRL to bring a flex cuff out, and I liked that cuff, and check out my QRL review up there. People seem to like that cuff, and it's weird because this is, and I mentioned this in the QR10, which was disappointing, and this is kind of continuing that. This is less and less of a flex cuff again and again. So you can, instead of just being like closer and rounder, which is also interesting because the new Bauer Ultrasonics are basically what the QRL was. So Bauer is going back to what this is, and Warrior is kind of going away. But as you can see, this kind of cuff design is a much more traditional cuff design in terms of like just the shape and everything. So it doesn't fit quite as tight on your hand. Like, it's not super snug in there like that. This is what a lot of pros are using in terms of like Warrior gloves, but they're not the flex cuff. So you can see a ton of pros like Dermot and stuff like that who have a cuff similar with this. Usually it's like a -1, so it's a little tighter, but it doesn't have this like gap here because it's all just integrated and it's not a flex cuff. And at this point, I'm wondering, what's the point of doing a flex cuff? Because like, that barely flexes, as you can see. It barely moves with you, and you don't even need to do this part separate to make this like work that way. All you have to do is put spandex here, and this is a mesh gusset, as you can see. So this doesn't really stretch a lot. As you can also see, it just kind of allows it to float a little bit. If it was spandex, it would move more, and it would move more the wrist. It's still moving a little bit, like, so you still get some coverage there. But when we compare this to these awesome QRE gloves, and by all means, this glove is a crazy design that is a straight up re-engineering of CCM's 11K design, or Reebok's 11K design. So this is a little crazy. This is spandex. As you can see, it stretches really well, but the whole backhand doesn't attach into the glove, where this one, the backhand is a more traditional glove. But this is a glove that a lot of pros still wear. And even if it's not like a QRE, a lot of people are still wearing the 12Ks, 11Ks. And like Carlson's wearing an Alpha glove with a flex cuff like this. So you can see the difference in the flex cuffs, right? So my question is, why even do this anymore? Like, why advertise a flex cuff if you're not going to use it? People still want this. Bauer's still doing it. I feel like people still want a flex cuff in there. This one is still a way better design. I get why they're not doing this design in a retail glove, because it is like a re-engineering, so there might be some consequences there. But put the spandex in this, I feel, and it would be better. Or just take it out completely. I love this glove. I love this flex cuff. It feels so good. It's so mobile in your hands, where this one is like, it doesn't feel like it moves as much, obviously, because it's nowhere near as connected as this one is. But it also just doesn't like feel as great. Like, the flex cuff doesn't really do anything. It's better than nothing, I guess, but pretty disappointing. And here's another integration where this one is kind of a spandex as well, but it's not the whole backhand. So you can see that's how that much one moves, and that's how that one moves. And this is also a case where this doesn't need to be disconnected anymore. When it was all like one round piece tight to your hand, it made sense for this to be disconnected from the actual glove, but this can just be connected straight there, and it will help it move more, as you can see with this. So you have this piece kind of leveraging your wrist and allowing the cuff to flex with your wrist more, where this one, because it's like separate, it doesn't really do that. So you could just do that, and I think it would be better. Obviously, again, this design is better. It's obviously a bigger cuff, so if you don't want a bigger cuff, it is what it is. But why don't you just sell the Pro well, I guess the QR5 version of this glove without the Pro, or whatever the one below is. I can't remember. I don't know their naming anymore. Whatever the one below was, just get rid of the flex cuff and keep the top one a flex cuff. So you have something nice like that. Another option is for Warrior to just ditch the flex cuff totally, because not really doing anything, and just do this. This is obviously a Pro Stock glove. These are called Zetterberg spec gloves, which have a built-in slash guard, but the cuff is open, but you have that slash guard, and the way that connects is just by spandex on it, connecting to this cuff and allowing it to flex like this. This glove feels excellent on wrist mobility and everything, so you still get that slash guard bonus, but it doesn't really restrict anything. So this one is just a disappointing kind of step back from what they were doing in the past. And I think they could have better integrations of this. And it doesn't really make a ton of sense for this glove. So that kind of like sums up the weird part of this glove. I use these gloves as one of my main gloves to use because I love that flex cuff. The palm's nice and thin for me, so I get a great feel in the stick. The glove is super mobile and like it's super broken in. The problems with it is this, even a Pro Stock one, is less protective than other one just because the foam package isn't great. This foam package is better. I understand from a retail standpoint, Warrior and companies can't just keep releasing the same thing over and over again, which is why this glove existed. The QRL was an excellent glove. In terms of overall design, foam package wasn't, but the design and the idea of it was excellent. QRE, step back in terms of like actual backhand design, supposedly more protective, but they had to do something for retail release. And then it went downhill with the QRE 10, which was just, I can't believe they released that. This is almost along the same lines. It's definitely better than the QRE 10. And I can easily recommend this glove compared to, well, just in general. I don't think it's the best glove on the market. And the one big selling point of this glove was that flex cuff is kind of gone. It's really hard for me to tell people to not buy a Jet Speed glove. It's hard for me to say buy this over a Jet Speed because a Jet Speed feels, who cares about weight? Because weight doesn't matter on these gloves. They're all so light that it's like, it doesn't really matter anymore. But a FT4 Pro glove still has plastic inserts. It's still protective enough. And I don't see a reason to go with this route compared to that. Like if I was picking one off the shelf, I'd go FT4 Pro all the time. This doesn't have that flex cuff anymore, which was the big deciding factor in like what made their gloves good. It also doesn't have the awesome liners they used to use, which is also really disappointing. They're cutting back on that. Now it's just like right here instead of all the way through. Super disappointing. Feels like Warrior's doing a lot of cost cutting. It felt like their multi-piece design in the QRL to this design was kind of cost cutting. And that one giant piece also kind of cost cutting and just a bad design. And then this too, where you lose out, like Silver Shield's gone. Obviously this was on the 4-roll stuff and everything before, and it was like the blue stuff, which is what this is, but it's still not like in all the liner anymore, so it's kind of disappointing. This is a fine glove, but it really kind of brings up the whole, what is Warrior doing? The LX line of gloves don't really need to exist. I don't know why they do. No one was really asking for another line of Warrior gloves. This and the 4-roll was kind of, like Covert and the 4-roll were good enough in what people wanted. They didn't need 3 lines. Heck, Bauer doesn't really need 3 lines, and they're kind of like the Nexus is kind of getting phased out. But Warrior's keeping their 4-roll. Maybe they're phasing that out because the new 4-roll's trash. But regardless, it's just meh. It needs something better to make it like more competitive. It's just not quite good enough compared to everything else on the market. Even like the Ultrasonic, which doesn't have the plastic inserts, so it's not quite as protective as what like this is, I would still pick that because it has the flex cuff. It's a nicer glove. Like it has a 3-piece thumb. This isn't good enough. There's nothing here pushing people to it, and it's really disappointing because Warrior used to be one of the best glove companies there are. The franchise one is still beloved by pros and by the glove community, which is a little bit skewed because they're not the retail community, so it's kind of like retail might not go there. But the QR1 was a decent glove. I wish they went back to a QR1, just add a flex cuff, and I think they would be in a better spot than what this glove is. The Lux was an interesting glove that some pros still use and won't get away from. And now it's just kind of like, why? Even this glove is a solid glove that you still see people using. There's no reason to go to this over this. So it's really disappointing. And I really wish Warrior kind of took a step back and found what people actually want. Because it's not the LX Pro gloves. Don't know the point of that. And also, stop with these weird cuffs. This cuff, like, this doesn't need to happen. But add this piece to the LX Pro and separate it. Just like how this is separate. Do things like that to make this stuff like better and more. Give me a reason to recommend this glove. And it's really disappointing when I can't, because I shouldn't say I used to love Warrior. I like quality products, and Warrior used to make some quality gloves and interesting gloves. Now it's kind of just, it's getting worse. Get better, please. I want to be able to recommend your stuff again. Because as of now, just get FT4 Pros. I mean, get Pro stock, but if you have to go retail, get FT4 Pros. So that's about it for this video. Thank you very much for watching. Hopefully Warrior listens and makes some changes. Like, this is better than the QRE10 by all means. But yeah. Thank you very much for watching. Hopefully it was helpful. If any of my reviews were helpful, please reach out to the manufacturers on social media to let them know. Recently, I have been made aware it has been very, very helpful if something actually pans out, because of people like you who watch this video and watch my content reached out and said how useful and helpful my videos were. So it would be greatly appreciated and continue to help me get more gear so I can do reviews on and make content on. Otherwise, if you want to support the channel and you're buying hockey equipment and live in the United States, check out Pure Hockey. Clicking that link, making a purchase, gives me a kickback. And all that money comes always back into the channel, so I keep making more videos like this. If you're in Canada, check out Hockey Supremacy. Links also in the description, and it's all the same thing. Otherwise, check out Patreon and buy me a coffee. Everything through there always comes back into the channel, so I keep making more content and doing more videos. Buying actual sticks and stuff to do tests on is very expensive, and I can't buy everything everyone always wants, so doing that would be greatly appreciated and help me so I can do reviews and stuff like that. Thank you very much for watching, and take it easy.
You're watching HockeyReviews.ca.